What's going on, y'all? I'm Justin with Clean Fun Fishing, a kayak guide in the Corpus Christi surrounding areas. I got my buddy Chris with Wolf's Fishing, and we're going to talk about kayaks for beginners, the things you need to know, things you need to look for when considering purchasing a kayak, and also the equipment that you need to go out on the water and actually use your kayak to go fishing.
So what's our first question is, what kind of kayak do you get?
I think the biggest thing is the weight capacity.
The weight capacity. You want to look at how big a bore are you, and that when they show you the weight capacity on there, that is total weight, you including the boat, including the drive, including all your equipment. So when you look at the weight capacity, they will give you a weight of your kayak, and then after whatever's left is what's left for you and your equipment.
So if it says 350 pounds, and let's just say the kayak and equipment weighs 100, then you're working with 250 pounds. So if you are 250, you're right on the border there. You may go with a little bit bigger one. The bigger, wider kayaks do have some of them up to 450 pounds.
500 pounds.
Is it 500, yeah. Some of them? So definitely some other options out there. The wider kayaks, like 35, 36 inches, are going to be for a little bit bigger person. I don't recommend going less than 12 feet. The 10 footers, when you get in a little bit of chop, they don't do quite as well. The 12 and 13, 14 footers, they do pretty good with the chop. So.
And the design of it, and then what kind of fishing do you do? Do you marsh fish? Do you open water fish? How heavy, the weight of the boat, is that going to be a factor? If you're a smaller person or woman, maybe even, you're going to be able or want to be dragging this boat across the land.
Yeah, I fish the marsh, so for me, and being 5'9", 175 pounds, I like the lighter kayaks because I can drag them over the banks. I can take shortcuts to where I'm going, and I had a heavier kayak, and it was really hard to get to drag by myself. So a lot of those are things to consider. If you're going to be able to launch right next to the water and you're not going to be dragging it through the marsh like I do, then the heavier kayaks are just fine.
I went with Justin to one of his marsh. And my boat's big. You've seen my big water, and I didn't want to be dragging that thing around because it's about 120 with everything in it. I mean, with just the drive, not even my equipment. So it's a chore if you have to do that. So. But
you need it because you're a bigger guy.
Right.
And so if you're a bigger guy, you got to do what you got to do to be able to fish comfortably in it. For me, it's not as much of an issue. So. The lightweight ones work good for me. The bigger ones. So what kind of kayak do you have, Chris?
And here it is, the 2020 Old Town Big Water PDL 132. This 13.2 foot fishing kayak is equipped with 265 foot-pounds of torque that will go from 0 to 6 miles an hour in less than 3 minutes. The modified aluminum rudder will allow tight turns even in those rough waters, and also equipped with the Yak Gadget Quick Stop anchor pole for when you want to stay locked in to those elusive gator trout. So here you go, folks, the Old Town Big Water PDL.
And you?
The most recent one is the Hoodoo Tempest. It's only 33 inches wide. It's 12 foot long. Pedal drive. It's a budget kayak that I've really enjoyed. I actually have 2 of them. And the more narrow kayaks aren't quite as stable, but as far as pedaling and paddling, I don't have any issues with mine. But definitely Chris and some bigger guys are going to do a lot better with the wider kayaks. They're a lot more stable and comfortable to fish out of.
And that brings up something else, the cost. I mean, what's your budget? You start off with a smaller kayak for a lower budget. You
gotta know what you want and what you're looking for. So hopefully some of these things we're mentioning, the width and length and the weight, will help you to decide. I started off with a little crappy $200 kayak from Academy. I didn't know if I was gonna like kayak fishing, so I bought the cheapest thing out there and I went on the water. The experience was really cool, but the kayak, sucked. So it didn't take me long. I sold that kayak the first month. I bought a bigger one, which was just a paddle, and I enjoyed it even more, but then I was struggling against the wind, so I upgraded to a pedal drive. I could have bypassed all those struggles and just got a budget pedal drive kayak, which would be where to start if you don't have a lot of money. You can try the little bit cheaper ones, and some of them are pretty good.
That brings up something else, is the drives. What kind of drives should you get? What different kinds are there? But the Hobies and some of these newer kayaks actually have the paddle drives like this.
The fin style.
The fin style, yeah, fin style.
And this would be like the propeller style. Those are definitely a lot lighter. These are heavy, but these, if you're a beginner, in my opinion, these, you might run into the bottom and maybe bend a fin, unless it's the Hobie with the kick-up fins. They kick up when you hit something, and protects it a lot better. These things, if you hit something with this big chunk of metal, you're gonna hit the bottom and you're gonna stop, and you're gonna raise it up and paddle, and you're gonna be able to do that over and over and over again and not damage these kind of drives. So the propeller drive does catch some grass. If you're fishing a lot of grass flats, grass areas, then the fin style drive is going to be where to go. As far as speed, the Hobies are actually pretty quick.
I want to say the propeller drive's faster.
Is it faster? You think it's faster?
I think so. I think that's just
I think so too.
That's kind of like that's going to be an argument that everybody has, is which one's faster, the fin style or the pedal. The prop style. And
the more narrow kayaks are going to be faster. So it depends on which kayak that the drive is in. So I fish the marsh, so I use these kind of drives because there's not much grass. There is in the marsh, but you have to paddle. It's so shallow in there. You have to paddle anyways. But to get to the marsh, the propeller drive works great for me. And like I said, the advantages on the fin style drive is you won't catch hardly any grass. So if you catch grass with the propeller, you have to raise it up and pull the grass out. And I do fish grass flats, and it does pretty good, like 90% of the time. So
yeah, mine is actually a propeller drive also. I prefer that over the fin drives, but it's just a preference thing. That's something that you have to decide or try out. Ask somebody to try them out. That'll work for you.
The reason you want a pedal drive, like I kind of mentioned, is when you're fighting the wind with a paddle, the fight becomes so easy with a pedal drive. It is a huge difference. I would only go maybe a half a mile when I had just a paddle, and then I switched to a pedal drive, and I'm going 2-3 miles one way. The wind picks up and I come back against the wind. I get back, I'm not freaking dead and not able to fish the next day. So the pedal drives are just a huge difference going against the wind and current.
That was actually something when I first decided to get a kayak. Was I saw this guy, I saw all these kayaks going out, and I kept thinking, man, you're gonna be so tired, swinging your arms with that paddle all the time. And then he came back, and I'm looking at him, and he just cruising along like a bicycle, and I was like, man, that's what I want right there. So
I remember those pedal drive guys passing me up, and they're wanting to talk to me, and I'm over there struggling, man. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm trying to get back, So that's gonna be where to go, if you're gonna be fishing on days that it might be windy, and you're going to run into some windy days. The weather can turn in a minute. So
that brings up something else. So what kind of things do we need by law in our kayaks?
You have to have a life jacket, you have to have a whistle, and you have to have a 360 light if you're going to be out there when it's dark, early in the morning or in the evening.
Something else I suggest having is a flag that sticks out. Honestly, I've had boaters tell me that when they're out there and they can't see the kayakers, but if they have a flag, a lot of times it breaks that horizon, and that helps them be seen.
Yeah, you want to be safe. You want to, I see a lot of videos and people don't have a 360 light and it's dark. The boats cannot see you. You definitely need some kind of light, and it is the law, and it is gonna help you a lot. So
what's some other things that are good to have in the kayak?
The things that you need. So let's say you make your decision. You buy a kayak. You want to go put it on the water, but the money spending isn't over yet. You spend maybe a couple grand, you still got to spend another $300 or $400. You need an anchor of some sort. I use a mushroom anchor. Chris uses like a stakeout pole.
Yeah, it's like an anchor pole. It's a Yacht Gadget anchor pole.
And the anchor poles don't work good in the sand though, do they?
No, actually they work pretty good in everything. Yeah.
Do they? Okay.
Yes. Some fish grips would be good.
Yeah, you need fish grips, some pliers, your tackle box, maybe a cooler, a bag cooler to put your fish in, or your drinks, or both.
Drinks, you gotta always take some water, at least some water when you're out there, because you'll be out there 6 to 8 hours, and if you don't have any water, you're gonna dehydrate, and it's just not gonna be a fun time after that.
Right. Then you need your rod and reel.
Lots of tackle, that's always a good thing.
But do you need too much tackle? Do you need a rod for every single situation? You're going to be in a kayak. A lot of kayakers take several rods, and
I've seen up to 12 rods. 12 rods. If you can believe that.
If you're brand new, then I would just get one for right now. I fish with one. Sometimes I bring the second one, and I don't ever use it, but you don't have to tie lures as often. But you can get a basic rod.
So why would they have that many rods?
Because they want to tie a different lure to each rod and reel, and not have to waste time when they're in the middle of fish and something isn't working. They want to cast with the other lure. So
it breaks off, or they just want a different kind of lure. I use 3 lures. I use 3 rods. One for popping cork, one for maybe a top water, and then another one that I change out all the time. I change them out all the time. That's why you see these people with so many rods.
If you get a basic rod and reel, like for me, what works best, I use a 7.5 foot Falcon clear water rod. It's a moderate fast, so it's pretty flexible, and everything I throw, popping corks, jig heads, soft plastics, wake baits, top waters, it works great. And then I have my Lose Hyper Mag on it, which has been a great reel, but it's it's close to $300, but it's definitely worth it if you're going to be doing any kind of fishing. So
I'll be the first one to tell you I can't throw or a bait caster reel. I run Spin Fisher 2500s on Cajun rod and Laguna rods. They're made for kayakers. They got small tails on them, so you're not bumping yourself. And me, my gut, I'm not hitting my chest or my PFD, and that's what works for me.
Or you will, if you're going to keep fish, you're going to need something to measure it with. You can get a fish measuring board.
Nice thing to have, yes. Stringer, measuring tape. What are things you probably, when you first get your kayak, that you probably shouldn't do? So, like for example, when you're first in the kayak, what you want to keep your head center line of the kayak. Okay, so if you're leaning beyond that point, that's where your tipping point is. So if you're pulling up your anchor and you're trying to yank it from the bottom, you will probably flip over. So try to keep your center of gravity in the center.
Yeah, keep your whole body up, and even when I'm going through a lot of chop, I'm moving to correct, and you have to stay in the center. What is stability, Chris? Stability of a kayak. Let's not put it on the kayak fisherman. Let's put it on the kayak. What is stability?
It'll allow you to not flip over.
Stability to me is the resistance that it gives against the water. So the more stable kayaks, you can lean pretty far over in them. So depending on which one you get, and like we mentioned, the wider kayaks, the fishing kayaks, they're all going to be real stable. So if you got the more narrow kayaks, then it's a whole different thing. You're going to have to be pretty careful. Pretty careful on staying completely center and not lean over hardly at all.
Now, what about what's something that they should do when they very first get their kayak? What would you say?
If you're a little bit worried about flipping, then take your kayak out there in shallow water, 2 or 3 feet with no gear in it, and just test it out. Do some leanings, do some if you want to try to stand up in it, which is something I don't recommend until you get comfortable with your kayak. But you can go out there and intentionally try to flip it.
Yeah, do a self-rescue. Yeah.
Because you're in shallow water, and you want to maybe go in deeper water, but you might be a little bit worried.
Yeah, you'll have that confidence that knowing that you can get back in and what you need to do or how you're going to actually get. Every boat's a little different. Typically, I will get in through the middle, whatever's easier for you to do. That's one thing I worried about when I first got my kayak was, oh man, am I going to be out by myself somewhere and flip out and have no, how am I going to get back in there? I mean, I'm a big guy, and I wouldn't think that's going to be easy. And I did. I took it at, well, I meant to do it on purpose, but I didn't. I did it on accident. I had a wave, and I actually went with the wave because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. I flipped out, and I was like, well, I meant to do it anyway, so let's get back in. And once I did that, I haven't fell out ever. I understood the center line, and but I looked at videos for self-rescue, all these things that helped me get back in. So I mean, that's definitely something to that you might be worried about. So get it over with, get your first flip out, get back in, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, you definitely have to get comfortable with your new kayak. So go out there on a calm day for your first time. I wouldn't go out there over 10 miles an hour your first time. Once you get good in the protected areas, you can venture out. You can hit a little bit of chop and get the feel of some chop. You do want to eventually, get used to fishing chop or at least passing chop. So we hope some of these tips were helpful in purchasing a new kayak and get on the water and keep those lines tight.
Be sure and subscribe to our channels. It's Wolf's Fishing and Clean Fun Fishing. So hope to see you. Tight lines, guys.